Hello. A few videos ago, I talked about my top 10 favourite tube stations. Perhaps the most commonly asked question in the comments section was, would I do a top 10 least favourite stations? Well, the short answer is, probably not. My reason is that I think it would make for quite a boring video. My reasons for disliking particular stations tend to always be very similar. They are architecturally boring, they are difficult to use, they're crowded, they're confusing. Basically much the same reason that anyone dislikes a tube station. If I had to pick one, it would probably be either Bank, Green Park, or King's Cross St Pancras. I don't like stations that are too crowded, and these three are all too crowded. Makes it slow to get through the passageways, they get hot, they're noisy, it's just unpleasant. Also, the way the different lines meet at them means that you often have to walk quite a long way around underground corridors. I prefer to avoid that if I can, because I just find it a bit frustrating. I feel like if I wanted a long walk, I wouldn't take the tube in the first place. I always used to say that Bank was my least favourite, but it has been rebuilt over the last few years and is a bit easier to use. But I haven't used it enough to say whether I still hate it or not. I may be opinionated, but I like to think I'm fair. In terms of least favourite architecturally, I'd probably pick one of the ones built between the 60s and the 90s. It's probably a side effect of having no money, but the tube stations of this era tend to be pretty boring. They also tend to be too small and get overcrowded. I'm not sure that I could say that I hate them, because frankly they just aren't interesting enough to be worthy of hate, if you know what I mean. I don't find them pretty, but I also don't find them ugly, if that makes sense. They do have their merits. I'm very fond of some of the artistic flair on the Victoria Line platforms, but I just can't get excited about them. Let's move on to something more positive. In the video, I asked which stations you liked, and there were some interesting and unexpected responses. I went through the comments section and lots of stations got mentioned. Not including the ones I talked about, your choices were Upminster, Cockfosters, Hounslow West, Queensway, Hampstead, Chiswick Park, South Kensington, Oxford Circus, Kew Gardens, Finsbury Park, North Greenwich, Queensbury, Stepney Green, Oakwood, Canning Town, Arnos Grove, Redbridge, East Finchley, Battersea Power Station, Hatton Cross, Russell Square, Royal Oak, Golders Green, Richmond, Wimbledon, Mile End, Covent Garden, Roding Valley, St James's Park, Woodside Park, Temple, Great Portland Street, St John's Wood, High Street, Kensington, Edgware Road, Circle Line, not Bakerloo, Barbican, Leytonstone, Embankment, Osterley, Tower Hill, Swiss Cottage, West Finchley, Southwark, Mansion House, Manor House, Waterloo, Northfields, Finchley Central, Euston Square, Tooting Bec, Paddington, South Harrow, Liverpool Street, Bond Street, Tottenham Court Road, Nine Elms, London Bridge, Canary Wharf, Turnham Green, Notting Hill Gate, Piccadilly Circus, Mornington Crescent, Heathrow Terminals 2 and 3, Heathrow Terminal 4, Fulham Broadway, Ealing Broadway, Tooting Broadway, Knightsbridge, Euston, Barking, Ladbroke Grove, Hillingdon, Turnpike Lane, Moore Park, Brent Cross, Clapham North, East Acton, Snaresbrook, Croxley, Elephant and Castle, Arsenal, Gunnersbury, Edgware, Mill Hill East, Barons Court, Caledonian Road, Upminster Bridge, Chalk Farm, Warwick Avenue, Westminster, Moorgate, Canada Water, Acton Town, Ravenscourt Park, Hainault, Putney Bridge, Epping, Tufnell Park, Charing Cross, Ruislip, Aldgate East, Holborn, Dagenham East, Loughton, Kilburn Park, Northwick Park, South Kenton, Stamford Brook, East Ham, West Kensington, Willesden Green, Newbury Park, Gloucester Road, Vauxhall, Seven Sisters, Whitechapel, Camden Town, Victoria, Bermondsey and Morden. I think that's all of them. You gave various different reasons, ranging from aesthetic to practical to personal. And I think it's quite interesting to find out why one person might like a station that another hated. For instance, Morden is on somebody's favourite, it's also on somebody else's least favourite. There were even those of you who liked King's Cross, St Pancras, Green Park and Bank. Hey, I'm not saying you can't, it's a matter of personal taste. Something a few of you pointed out is that I hadn't mentioned any stations on the Jubilee Line extension, with Canary Wharf and Westminster cropping up a lot as suggestions for stations that I should have talked about. Now, I actually do like the Jubilee Line extension. It was opened in 1999, but only just, and I think it was a bit of a return to form for the Underground. It was partially paid for by the developers at Canary Wharf, so perhaps London Transport felt that they could push the boat out a bit. I do like Westminster a lot. It has a real cyberpunk feel, and it takes you by surprise. There's this unassuming entrance, and then this kind of Blade Runner thing below the surface. Canary Wharf is similar, fairly low-key entrance, massive interior. It was considered futuristic enough that there's a deleted scene from Star Wars Rogue One that was filmed there. I do find it a bit of a pain to change trains at Canary Wharf, though, because the DLR, Elizabeth Line and Jubilee Line bits are separate. But yes, I do like the Jubilee Line extension, it just didn't make the list. But that's because there are just so many excellent stations on the tube that it's really hard to narrow it down. And you know, I think that's a good thing. Well, I hope you enjoyed this preferential tale from the tube. If so, please do leave a like and consider subscribing for more. I would like to thank my donors on Ko-fi, on Patreon, and here on YouTube for your generous support. You are the reconsideration to my bank station. And I'll see you all again for another Tale from the Tube.